there, my name is Emily.
And my name is Kelly.
Today we're going to be teaching you how to make the holiday greetings wreath as part of our kits. So, to start, you're going to want to take your wreath and figure out what you want to be as your top. So, you can kind of spin it around and figure out if there's a spot that is maybe a little thin, like right here, or if there's something that looks a little funky. That's what you're going to want to cover up, so that's where you're going to put your bow. So this is going to be the top of my wreath today. We're hanging it up. You can always lay it on a table and work on it that way. Sometimes it's nice to be able to see the whole thing though. First we're going to start off by adding in all of our fresh greens. So those are going to be the pine that is here. So you're going to want to have some sort of pruners or like a heavy duty kitchen scissors to help cut through the branches. And what you're going to want to do, you're just going to kind of want to take each little ostrich plume here, and you can cut it down close to where the branch meets the other branch. And then you'll want some sort of either hot glue gun. We're using a hot pot, whatever you can use to help stick that and so it stays inside your wreath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip the end here and probably go about an inch. If you're using hot glue, you don't have to use as much.
Your fingers.
Right. Oops. Okay. So like that, and then you're going to kind of want to start, you can see how the wreath goes in one direction. I like to start where it's easiest. So you're just going to lift up a couple of the branches and stick that right in there. And it's okay if it hangs out a little bit, and just kind of press hard. If you want it to be a little bit closer, you can cut your branches a little shorter.
And some of these pieces are going to be a little bit scraggly or a little bit misshaped. Feel free to take a big piece like this and cut it again. So you can have a little piece and a big piece. Maybe we don't even use this one. But yeah,
there'll be enough to have extra, so you definitely don't have to use every single piece. And while I'm finishing up, Kelly, do you want to kind of go over the Oregonia?
Yep. So this is going to be a little bit woodier of a stalk. You're going to be a little particular on your pieces with this too. So same kind of thing. You want to cut kind of at some of the breaks in your branches. It's a little bit difficult to see here. But we're going to start with pieces about this long. To make it a little bit easier to put this into your wreath, once you trim it, I would peel some of these leaves off from the bottom so that you've got kind of a clean stem, and that's just going to make it easier to put that into your wreath. And feel free to measure it too. So before you glue, you can always kind of set some of this in, especially if you're working on a table. You can kind of stage this up before you glue everything together and make sure you like the placement of everything. This one's a little bit long for make it easier for Emily to work with.
Thank you.
And pieces like this are going to work really nicely for you that have a few stems. So it just adds some depth and a little bit more fullness to your wreath. And there's plenty of the Oregonia here that you'll have more than enough to work with. So you can be kind of selective in the pieces that you choose to use.
And it's your wreath, so if you decide that you like the Oregonia over the pine, you can definitely put more of something in.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to kind of step back and take a look at it and see if there's a spot that maybe needs a little more. Like in this one, I kind of tucked these guys behind, so I can't really see them as much. So I'm going to take some of the longer pieces and stick them in front.
And the neat thing with this Oregonia is that it has this really beautiful variegated texture. So it's almost got a bit of a holly look to it. So it's just a really beautiful traditional look that's going to fit very nicely in your wreath.
I think that's probably good.
I think so.
All right, and there's a lot of stuff going on the wreath, so it doesn't have to be perfect by any means, because everything kind of plays together and is going to help with a more natural look. So I'm going to start taking the Oregonia and kind of doing the same thing. I'm going to start on the side where it's really easy to pick up the branches, and I'm going to kind of put them, I kind of group my pines in threes.
What are they building?
I have no idea. So you're going to kind of want to put these in the spots next to them, and you can cover some of the pine up too. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. Throw a couple more in there. This is a really nice piece of it is. And you can also, I've been seeing a lot of one-sided wreaths, so you can kind of focus heavier on one side if you want a little more of just a different look. Right. And don't be afraid to have some pieces sticking up into the middle a little more too. That's usually what's hanging against your door, so that's really going to stick out. When you put it in, you'll kind of feel there's the base of the wreath, and if you were to flip it over, you'll see that too. There's a wire piece, and then there's the spot where all of the heavy branches from the balsam are. You're definitely going to want to make sure when you're sticking the tougher, bigger pieces that you're attaching to that, because that's going to be a lot sturdier and it's going to last longer. So the Oregonia is a fresh material, so it will dry out a little bit and get a little crispy. That's perfectly normal and natural. And you might see some little leaves start to fall off, but the main part of the plant should still stay.
Mm-hmm. And as it dries too, it's not really going to turn a brown. It's probably going to stay more of a sagey green. Mm-hmm. So with a wreath like this, you could easily, after the holidays, take the bow off and just use it as a winter wreath for your front door and keep it all season long.
Yeah.
Especially with the dried greens in, it'll still be really beautiful.
And there are products and materials that you can spray on your wreaths to help them stay green a little bit longer. And you can find those pretty much anywhere. We sell them here. They help to keep them from turning brown.
And different types of greens will last at different lengths.
Yep.
So things like your cedar, some of your pine too, as it gets warmer, you're going to notice those browning out first. And you can just trim that out if you need to. If the base of your wreath still looks green and you want to keep it up, you can just take a pruners and clip those pieces back out. And even fill in with fresh greens if you wanted to keep it a little bit longer into the season.
All right. So then this is where my bow is eventually going to go. So I'm not going to put as much at the top there just because the bows are pretty big and I don't want to cover up all the nice products that we have. One piece. Perfect. Alrighty, so that's
Awesome.
gonna finish up the Oregonia. Feel free, if you're not done, feel free to pause the video, have some wine, do whatever you need to.
That's what we forgot.
Oh my goodness. We're slacking today.
Right.
Alright, so now I think I'm actually gonna start on the pine cones. So these guys are fun. There's gonna be a couple different sizes in here. So obviously some bigger ones, some smaller ones. You're gonna kind of want to be strategic about it. So like I'm probably gonna put the bigger one at the bottom and kind of work my way up the sides. And you don't have to use all of them either. If you only want to use a couple, that's totally fine. I'll turn up my glue here, I think.
And like Emily mentioned, we're using the glue pot, but if you're using a glue gun, it's going to be the same process.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see as much as we're putting on here, but it's really just a good solid dab at the end, like with the branches too, just enough so that they stick well in there.
Yeah.
So you don't need an excessive amount.
Nope.
That just leads to burned fingers.
Exactly, and lots of string to pull off.
Like, that's right.
So for these, I'm actually kind of gluing only a little bit of it because that way I can angle it out so you see it a little more. These wreaths are really thick, so if I were to just stick the whole thing down in, you wouldn't see as much of it. So, and you can kind of play with the wreath a little bit too and move some of the branches out of the way. If there's one that's really bothering you, feel free to cut it. Alrighty. So here I've kind of got some of the stems of the Oregonia that were really woody and they're showing a little bit. So I'm actually going to use my pine cone to cover up that. And again, this guy's kind of driving me crazy, so I think he might get a little haircut. Just so you can see the pine cones a little better. So I've got 3 on that side. I'm going to put 2 on this side to kind of even it out. And they don't have to be symmetrical, or they can be. It's definitely up to you and what your style is. And feel free to angle the pine cones different ways too. That way, you know, as you walk around your wreath and see it from different sides, you're going to notice different things. Alright. Okay. So now I'm going to start on your berries. So you're going to notice you've got about 10 stems in there. There's about, I would say maybe 7 in each. Feel free to put them together if you want, or you can keep them separate. And you're just gonna kind of fill in between the pine cones. So I'll maybe put some in here. And then sections that are a little bare, I'll put maybe double. These stems are pretty long. Feel free to cut them if you want. Otherwise, they're wire, so you can just bend them like that and do that way too. Sometimes bending works because you can get a little bit more glue on there and then there's more for the boughs to stick to. Again, you're going to pull back the boughs as much as you can. If the glue's kind of causing everything to stick together, no worries. You can just put it in wherever it works. And again, I'm gonna kind of focus on this lower part of the wreath because my bow is gonna cover up a lot here. So
while Emily finishes up plugging in the rest of her berries here, your wreath comes with a pre-made bow. Same with we were talking about the front of your wreath. You kind of want to take a look at your bow and make sure that it's gonna lay the right way. It might have gotten a little wrinkled up in transport. But you can take, these are all wired, so the edges of your bow is wired, so it's going to hold its shape. So you can just kind of put your fingers in like this and spread it out a little bit to give it a little bit more volume and get any wrinkles out that you might have in there. I'm just going to shape it out a little bit. Make sure that the front is indeed the front. Make sure it's looking pretty good. And then with your tails too, obviously, like, this is up to you how you feel too. We have ours just kind of in a real traditional way here. If you wanted, you could even just cut them and weave them through the base perhaps. With the wired, you can also do kind of like a twirl with it and it'll hold that shape too.
Yep.
So you could do something like that so that it's kind of got a little curlicue to it. Yeah, whatever your personal preference is, they're kind of easy to work with. If you would cut the tails off, like I said, you can tuck them in someplace else or even make another loop to make the body of your bow even bigger too. But it's kind of your own personal.
Like my mom, who has to have her bows on the bottom of the wreath, you can always like turn your wreath once you're done and just stick them in at the bottom too.
Absolutely.
So actually, I think I'm going to turn this just a little bit, just because I'm kind of. Oh. All right. So then, what we're gonna do this part, if you have a friend who can help you, it's always ideal. Kelly, would you actually grab your wreath? So what you're gonna want to do, you're gonna want to take this wire and you're gonna want to push it through the main part of the wreath. There's a lot of stems in there, so it can be kind of tough. So you're gonna want to grab it as close to the end as you can. And Kelly is kind of moving the wreath aside, which is really helpful as well. And if it's easier,
maybe it's a good thing we didn't have the line.
Maybe. Oh no.
Oh no, they pulled off.
Actually, we could probably just wrap one under the bottom and one on the top.
I think so. Yeah, there's enough room once you move them aside. I think that's good. Am I still even?
Yeah. So what we're doing, instead of pushing it through, because we're actually going to put one piece of wire over the top ring and one piece of wire under the bottom. And then you're going to kind of fill in your wreath behind it. And then you'll probably have to fluff your bow again. Just kind of pull the edges so that they're fuller.
Get back up for this part.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that works. These guys are a little long for me, so when I'm done, I'll probably actually just kind of cut them a little shorter. But it's definitely up to you. You can also kind of scooch them over to the side if you want. Like that. There's a lot of different options.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in and making your wreath with us this holiday season. And we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas from the Vanderhigh Company.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.